In the shadowed alleys of Sicily, where whispers carry the weight of life and death, there arose an organization so shrouded in mystery and power that its very name evokes fear and respect: the Sicilian Mafia. From its early days of protecting a lawless land to its ascent as a global criminal empire, the Mafia's story is one of cunning, brutality, and survival. Today we unravel the origins of this formidable entity, exploring how it filled the void of authority in a changing society and expanded its reach far beyond the sun-drenched hills of Sicily. The Mafia was born to fill a void of authority on the Italian island of Sicily as the transition from feudalism to capitalism was delayed until the 19th century. Between 1812 and 1861, the number of Sicilian landowners surged from 2,000 to 20,000. This explosion of independent wealth creators also paved the way for the emergence of a new entity: the Mafia. With the increase in production and trade came disputes inherent to the capitalist system, such as property rights and contract enforcement. The safeguards we take for granted in most countries today were virtually non-existent in 19th century Sicily. The law's enforcers had been landowning barons, but they disbanded their private armies to embrace the new era. It was expected that the Italian state's judicial institutions would take over these functions from the land barons. However, they soon proved to be overwhelmed by the task. This is when the Mafia stepped in to fill the authority gap. The original mafioso settled disputes, enforced contracts, and protected property, roles meant for formal authorities but which they could not fulfill. While states levied taxes for such services, mafioso profited from their work. The Italian government's weakness in Sicily was evident. Many towns lacked police forces, and banditry operated with impunity. The economic boom, coupled with increased crime and the inefficient enforcement of the law, forced landowners to seek extra-legal justice, thus organizing the first mafia schemes, focused on the protection of lemons and livestock. The early mafia emerged from the need of producers to safeguard their lemon crops and livestock. Sicily, known as Italy's granary since the Roman Empire, also became a hub for citrus production. The value of these fruits significantly increased by the late 18th century when it was discovered they could cure scurvy. The Mafia proved much more effective than the state in capturing and punishing thieves of lemons and livestock, and its prestige grew. Landowners had to pay for their protection, but by the 1920s, the Mafia's success rate in recovering stolen livestock was 95%. In comparison, the police resolved less than 10% of such cases. Shortly, Mafia members began to use special signals for recognition amongst themselves, and implemented a strict non-collaboration policy with the police through their code of silence. Naturally, the Mafia and law enforcement compete to provide the same service. However, the latter showed little interest in performing their duties efficiently. The Mafia's entanglement with politics and the judicial system quickly evolved. In the film The Godfather, Vito Corleone is depicted as having senators and officials on his payroll, a practice started by his mafioso ancestors through bribing judges and politicians and coercing Sicilians to vote for candidates favorable to their operations. This infiltration into the judiciary allowed Mafia members to dodge persecution while ensuring the incarceration of their rivals. By 1900, the Palermo police had identified 8 Mafia clans with a total of 670 members. These powerful families would collaborate or compete based on the situation. By this time, the Mafia's portfolio of criminal activities had expanded to include kidnappings for ransom, forgeries, witness intimidation, thefts, and murders. The Mafia also set aside funds early on to provide legal support to prosecuted members and financial aid to their families. The fall and resurgence of the Mafia saw Benito Mussolini aiming to dismantle the organization to consolidate his regime and eliminate his political adversaries in Sicily. Although he couldn't completely crush the Mafia, as his political propaganda claimed, Mussolini significantly weakened it through a harsh campaign of arresting its members, taking their children as hostages, and publicly seizing their properties. Around 11,000 mafiosi were arrested, and several leaders fled to the US and Canada, including Niccolo and Vito Rizzuto, Joseph Bonanno, and Carlo Gambino. When Allied forces invaded Sicily in 1943, they found a formidable ally in the Mafia. After fascism was overthrown, many fascists were replaced by mafiosi or their associates in state positions, and the Mafia cemented its transition from rural areas to urban centers. Palermo, the Sicilian capital, was semi-destroyed by bombing during the war, and the Mafia seized control of the Public Works Office, directing 80% of construction permits to their front companies. By the late 1950s, Joseph Bonanno, a capo in the American Mafia, had created the famous Commission to resolve disputes among the clans peacefully. In the 1970s, the Mafia delved into the lucrative cigarette smuggling business, and in 1995 began refining heroin in Sicily, following the French government's dismantlement of Corsican-operated refineries. Several Sicilian mafiosi relocated to the USA to directly manage the burgeoning drug trade, marketed to the public through a network of pizzerias and trattorias controlled by the organization, which also served to launder money. Mafia clans almost constantly existed in a state of low-intensity conflict and latent war, with the 20th century witnessing two high-profile confrontations. The first internal war of the criminal organization occurred in 1962 to 1963, when the Barbara clan assassinated Sicilian bosses Cesare Manzella and Calcedonia da Pisa over a disagreement on a drug shipment to the USA. The killings ignited a war between clans, resulting in the death of several mafiosi, 6 military personnel, a policeman, and injuries to bystanders caught in the crossfire on the streets of Palermo. Government action forced the clans to adopt an even lower profile, and their leaders went into hiding, deactivating the commission for 6 years. The Second Mafia War began brewing in the 1970s, under the Corleone plan, led by Leggio, who, despite being imprisoned in 1974, continued to operate through Salvatore Totorina. The conflict escalated seriously in 1981 with the assassination of Stefano Bontade, a commission member, by the Corleonesi, leading to their victory, and Rina becoming the Mafia's boss of bosses. The most significant Mafia trial occurred between 1986 and 1987, condemning 338 mafiosi in a case known as the Maxi Trial, led by magistrates Paolo Borsellino and Giovanni Falcone from a bunker in Palermo. Both judges were assassinated in 1992, months apart, in bomb attacks orchestrated by the Mafia, causing global outrage. Capo Salvatore Rina was arrested in January 1993, followed by a series of bombings in Rome, Milan, and Florence, targeting tourist spots and churches as revenge against anti-mafia priests, leaving 10 dead and over 90 injured, and causing cultural heritage damage. Rina was sentenced to life imprisonment and died in prison in 2017. Following Rina's prosecution, the Mafia leadership passed to Bernardo Provenzano, who was arrested in 2006 and died in 2016 while under house arrest. Provenzano halted the violence, initiating a period known as the Mafia Peace. Currently, the leading Mafia boss is Matteo Massino Denaro, a Sicilian born in 1962, who has been a fugitive since the 1990s, and is among the FBI's top 10 most wanted. In 1972, The Godfather, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and based on the novel by Mario Puzo, offered the public a glimpse into the Mafia family and its relations with rival clans. Each clan has a boss, depicted by Marlon Brando in the film, followed by an underboss, advisors, and soldiers who execute orders. In the 1980s, mafioso Tommaso Paschetta became the first significant member to break the Mafia's code of silence by becoming an informant under FBI protection, providing vital information for the Maxi trial. Mafia membership is reserved for Sicilian men or their descendants. Women are formally excluded from the organization, though some have engaged in activities on behalf of their husbands or relatives. A candidate for clan membership undergoes rigorous testing for courage, obedience, discretion, skill, and cruelty. The final test involves committing a murder, proving the candidate is not a covert enemy agent, and binding them to silence. Often referred to as families, clans do not always have blood-related members. Yet, leaders commonly prefer a son or a trusted individual as a successor. Positions within the Mafia are not hereditary, safeguarding against nepotism. Most mafiosi are full-time, with occupations outside the security forces or conflicting interests with the organization prohibited. The Code of Silence, Omerta, mandates death for traitors, including their relatives. A mafioso would not turn to the police if victimized. Rather, they would personally punish the offender to maintain their reputation. Despite profiting from the drug and alcohol trade, the Mafia disapproves of its members consuming these substances due to the risk of indiscretions. Mafiosi are almost entirely forbidden from writing to avoid incriminating evidence, leading to a preference for brevity and moderation over the typical expressiveness of Sicilians. A candidate cannot directly approach a high-ranking mafioso to join. An intermediary vouches for their trustworthiness. Contrary to some beliefs, the commission is not a mafia executive body like a corporate board. There isn't just one commission. The most notable one is comprised of leaders of major clans, with smaller regional commissions existing. Its power is limited, with families maintaining nearly complete autonomy and independence. The commission mediates dispute resolutions, fosters clan collaboration, and regulates violence. The boss of bosses is not an ultimate authority, but is respected across families for their prestige and consensus-building skills. High-profile assassinations require commission approval due to the potential repercussions for all involved. Suppose a clan wishes to eliminate someone within another clan's territory. In that case, approval must be obtained from the local boss and the corresponding commission, which ensures adherence to this protocol. The commission also plays a role in succession matters. A clan's stability is often tied to its leader's prestige. Upon a leader's death, incarceration, or retirement, the commission oversees that the transition occurs with minimal disruption and imbalance. However, this goal is not always achieved, and the collapse of a clan's operations might lead to their absorption by others, ushering in periods of instability. Sometimes the commission divides the territory of a dissolving clan among neighboring ones, and may appoint a regent or interim leader for a family facing a succession crisis. The Mafia's history illustrates what can happen in areas where the state is weak and corrupt, allowing control to shift to criminal organizations, a sadly reoccurring theme in various Latin American countries today, where drug cartels have gained immense power. We hope this video has been informative. If you have anything to add, please share it in the comments section. Like this video and share the link with your family and best friends, so they too can learn more about the origins of the Sicilian Mafia. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe and follow us. Remember, people unaware of its history are doomed to repeat it.